Here we go. What is up, everybody? Welcome into the show. It is a Thursday, November 13th, and we're live right here on the San Francisco 49ers Report, coming at you from Chat Sports HQ. My name is Chase Sr., producer Chip along for the ride as well, and we're hanging out with the faithful. No matter where you are, how you're tuned in, as always, thank you so much for making today's show a part of your day, and there's plenty to talk about here over the next hour. We're going to dive into the latest San Francisco 49ers news going into this Week 11 game against the Cardinals. We have a lot of injury updates to touch on as well. We're going to try to solve a San Francisco mystery pertaining to the health of this ball club. And then we're going to open up the floor to do a mailbag. Get those questions in right now for our Q&A. Use the hashtag 49ers or send in a super chat. And speaking of that NFL Week 11 game, looks as though Brock Purdy going to make his return, start at quarterback. Ricky Pearsall going to make his return. He'll be out there at wide receiver. Niners going to get back Alfred Collins at defensive tackle. All of those players, big boosts to both sides of the ball for the Niners. San Francisco, 2-point favorites over Arizona with the over-under at 48.5. Kickoff set for 4:05 p.m. Eastern, 1:05 p.m. Pacific. Game going to take place, of course, in Glendale, Arizona for this Week 11 NFC West tilt. And it's a big one for San Francisco with where they are right now in the NFC playoff picture, the 8 seed on the outside looking in currently of that playoff hunt at 6-4. But they have a doable, winnable schedule coming up here over the next month. And if they can take care of business, they can put themselves in a really good position to be a playoff team by season's end, which I think would be a big win considering going into this year, trying to flush that 6-11 season from a year ago. They did tinker with the roster, and they had a little bit of that organizational reset. And my keys to the game for the Niners, I think it's really paramount for this offense in this game and really the rest of the year to carry the load, to put this team on its shoulders. The talent is there. The coaching is there. And I think that number that the Niners want to get to, about 30 points per game, that gives you more breathing room to make mistakes, take some lumps and bruises on defense because you're young and you're shorthanded there. And when that is the case, you got to leave it up to your offense to play to a level that they are capable of playing to. On defense, I would like to see some personnel changes. Like if the Niners didn't make a move at the NFL trade deadline because they didn't want to give up draft picks for the future and they're trying to build ahead for the future, why not play players to see if they can be building blocks for the future of your organization? I want to see more Sebastian Valdez. I want to see more of Nick Martin. Can he just get on the field? I want to see Marquis Siegel over a player like Ji'Ayir Brown. And so those are some of the personnel changes that I would like to see. I think Robert Saleh needs to coach better than he did against the Rams. They had no answers for the multiple tight end sets against Sean McVay. They looked confused. The coverage on the back end was awful. No blitz call really worked. I thought Matthew Stafford had all day to throw, of course, and he's going up against one of the worst pass rushing units in the NFL. But in a goal line situation, really, we're going to have Malik Mustafa lined up against Devontae Adams. That's some Nick Sorensen type of stuff. For Kyle Shanahan, stop being so loyal. Bench Jake Brendel. He's not as good as Matt Hennessy. Go with the better player, not your favorite player. Matt Hennessy is more athletic. I think he has a stronger anchor. And I think this offense is better with Hennessy compared to Brendel. And I just want the Niners to have a clear plan and direction. They're playing some of these veterans like Jordan Elliott and a player in Ji'Ayir Brown who didn't play well last year over some of these younger players. But this year is about building toward the future, but there's a lot of mixed messaging for San Francisco right now. This Niners schedule coming up, they're 6-4 right now. There is a chance they can win their next 4 games to get to 10-4. If that happens, they are in a really good spot to make the NFL playoffs. And then they play the Chicago Bears in December. That could decide one of the wild card spots. And so you should beat Arizona. The Panthers are more competitive than what a lot of people thought this year, but you should be able to beat the Panthers on Monday Night Football. The Browns stink, and even though Kyle Shanahan has always struggled against Jim Schwartz defenses, there's no excuse to lose that game in Cleveland. You have your Week 14 bye later this year compared to years prior, and then the Tennessee Titans are one of the worst teams in football. A programming reminder, and speaking of this Niners-Cardinals game, Myself, Chip, we're going to be live for it Sunday afternoon for another watch party. The best place to experience a Niners game day outside of being at the actual game. Don't just hit that subscribe button. Also, turn on your notifications. Therefore, anytime I publish a video, anytime we do go live, you will get that push notification. For our live show, we're going to do a mailbag for segment number 3. So get those questions in using the hashtag 49ers or send in a super chat. And already, we've got 223 people hanging out. If you're ready to talk some San Francisco, I need everybody watching right now to just take a moment, hit that thumbs up icon, and like the video. A lot to get into here this afternoon. We're going to do some Niners injury talk. We're going to try to solve this mystery behind why San Francisco has been injured so often. And then we'll talk all things Niners as part of our mailbag, which is coming up segment number 3. Shout out to the recent commenter club. I see Ron Bingham, R. Jeffrey, John Perry, Niner Faithful, Luis Camarina, Elias Davis, Juice, all in the chat right now. Again, support the show. Hit that thumbs up icon, like the video. We're about to get things started here, talking about the latest Niners injury news around Brock Purdy, Ricky Pearsall, Brandon Aiyuk, as well as John Lynch. Spoke earlier on the radio and had some very noteworthy things to say about 3 of the best players on this Niners ball club. So Chip is about ready to go. I'm ready to go. The Niner gang tuned in from every pocket of America and worldwide, ready to roll as well. Segment number 1 going to get underway. I see a couple of questions coming in for our mailbag. Chua, I see you, brother. Use that hashtag 49ers. And with that, let's get the official show underway live here on the San Francisco 49ers Report on this Thursday, November 13th of 2025. Let's go. Here we go. Welcome into the show. We're off and running. This is the San Francisco 49ers Report. My name is Chase Senior, and as always, no matter where you are, how you're tuned in, thank you so much for making today's show a part of your day. As the Niners prepare to play the Arizona Cardinals on the road in Week 11, we have a lot of injury news that we need to get into here. Coming up over the course of the next several minutes, health updates on quarterback Brock Purdy, wide receiver Ricky Pearsall, and wide receiver Brandon Aiyuk. Niners general manager John Lynch was on the radio this morning, and he had a lot to say about those 3 players on your screen. And let's begin here with the face of the franchise. What is the latest on Brock Purdy going into this Week 11 tilt against the Arizona Cardinals? Both teams pretty banged up. Will Purdy be banged up in this game? We'll see. As we know, he suffered that turf toe injury back in Week 1, returned Week 4. He's been out since. Mac Jones, in his absence, has gone 5-3 this year. What a valuable signing he's been in free agency, especially at that price tag. And on Wednesday, Kyle Shanahan said Purdy was limited aggressive. The Niners really like how he responded and performed in that practice. And so you look ahead to Sunday, the hope and expectation for the Niners is that Purdy will be able to make his return against Arizona in his home state as he grew up there. Now, in the 2 starts for Purdy this year, been a little bit of a mixed bag. This goes back to last year in 2024 when he turned the football over at a pretty high rate. This season, completing less than 66% of his passes in those 2 starts, 586 yards, 4 touchdowns, 4 picks. So the turnovers continue to be a little bit of a lingering problem carrying over from the 2024 campaign, and the quarterback rating, 85.8. Was he stellar in Week 1 against Seattle? No, but 6 for 6 on that game-winning drive. And then against the Jags, he clearly wasn't healthy, couldn't plant his foot or drive his throws, and so that led to a lot of overthrows and turnovers, and that's why he hasn't played his best football so far this year. But what's interesting is that I think a lot of people have forgotten about the fact that Purdy, since coming into the league in 2022, when he was the 3rd stringer to start the year, Trey Lance got hurt, Jimmy Garoppolo got hurt, then he came in that Miami game, he has been the most efficient quarterback in football since his rookie year in 2022, ahead of Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes. And I know that last year was very frustrating for everybody involved, right? And at times late in games, Purdy tried to play hero ball, and he doesn't have the requisite arm strength to try to make some of those crazy throws to be the hero. And he forced the issue a little bit late in games when the Niners were down, and context is always important. San Francisco's offense had so many injuries a year ago. There was no continuity, which led to a lack of rapport, but he was still a very efficient quarterback in 2024. His lowest quarterback ranking in his career as a starter, number 7. His highest in 2023, number 1. Now, with Mac Jones, what's been incredible about what he's done, his number 1 wide receiver has pretty much been Kendrick Bourne. George Kittle missed a lot of time. Juwan Jennings in and out of the lineup hasn't played well this year. No Ricky Pearsall for the most part. No Brandon Aiyuk, of course. And so that's why I give Mac so much credit with this ground game having an inability to really get going and be consistent for playing the way that he has. And so I'm very interested to see Purdy with that chip on his shoulder coming back to see how he looks on top of if he's going to be 100% or not. And that brings me to this. My concern is this with Purdy playing in this game on Sunday and moving forward. If he is less than 100% and he is hurt, is he better than a healthy Mac Jones, who has played very well this season? I think another part of this conversation is this, that if the Niners did not give Purdy this offseason $265 million on that mega contract extension, would he be playing in this game? I think that's a fair question to ask. He's probably feeling some pressure for wanting to play because of how well Mac has played and him getting that contract. He wants everybody to know this is my team, and it is his team when he's healthy. And the Niners are like, we made this investment in him. We think that he's our franchise guy. At some point, he's got to play, even if he's not 100%. Now, here's what General Manager John Lynch said about Purdy. We've been pretty consistent. This is Brock's team. When he's healthy and able, he'll be back out there. I think he got off to a good start with that yesterday, talking about Wednesday. We'll have them both ready. If Purdy shows his health and his ability all week, then he'll be out there on Sunday. And what a job by Mac Jones to go 5-3 with Purdy sideline with this nagging turf toe, which is obviously a very complex and a pain in the ass type of injury. If something does happen to Purdy, he gets re-injured. San Francisco, we know, can rely on McCorkle, who is top 10 in the NFL in passing yards per game this season. Nothing to scoff at. Quarterback rating, 97.4, 13 touchdowns, 6 picks, 2,100 yards. He's resurrected his career. He's also been very accurate, completing about 70% of his passes. Again, what a huge pickup for the Niners in free agency this past offseason, and you've seen why Kyle Shanahan really liked him for his scheme in the pre-draft process going into the 2021 draft. Still to come here on the show, more injury updates and insight on Ricky Pearsall and Brandon Aiyuk. We'll go wide receiver heavy coming up here in just a moment. But first, don't forget to hit that subscribe button for the best Niners coverage year-round here on the San Francisco 49ers Report. Anytime that I'm in front of a camera on a microphone, I want this coverage and this content to be insightful, informative, entertaining, thought-provoking. I want you to have a voice, and that's a big reason why this platform is so big and so great, and why we've reached 3 million people every month, each month, since the football season started. And we're closing in on 180,000 subscribers. Help us get there, lock us in, and hit that sub button right now. This episode of the 49ers Report is brought to you by Prize Picks. The hard-hitting football action, even better with Prize Picks. The weather might be changing, but the feeling of being right, it never gets old, man. So keep the season rolling on Prize Picks by getting $50 instantly in lineups when you play your first $5 lineup. This is America's #1 fantasy sports app. Join the millions of users. Sign up today. Prize Picks puts their users first. All withdrawals are fast, safe, and secure. I know you all know ball. I want you to show me. Turn your takes into cash with Prize Picks. It's also the only app that offers stacks, meaning you can pick the same player up to 3 times in the same lineup. You want to pick more on Christian McCaffrey's receiving yards, rush yards, and touchdowns. Now you can pick all of them in the same lineup, only on Prize Picks. And you know we're going back to the well with the more on the Christian McCaffrey receiving yards. It's been a steady winner all year long because he's been an all-purpose stud. George Kittle, more than a half rushing or receiving touchdown. Both those hit last week. And then Trey McBride. Cardinals are very shorthanded at wideout. I think he has a monster game. these Niners linebackers have struggled to cover tight ends too. So more than 67.5 receiving yards for Trey McBride. Download the Prize Picks app today. Use the code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, it's good to be right. So as far as Ricky Pearsall and Brandon Aiyuk go, two talented wide receivers who are both nifty route runners. They have such clean and nimble footwork, and they both have skill sets that if they can both come back and both be healthy at the same time, I really like their complementary skill sets. Because of the route running and the strengths that I talked about, they're both explosive players when they're healthy, but they both have an ability to beat man coverage and zone coverage, especially when you pair their skill sets up with how Brock Purdy plays, with the timing and the anticipation, and how Kyle Shanahan designs the offense and calls plays and draws plays to get his receivers open. Here's what Lynch said about Ricky Pearsall, who hasn't played since week 4. Ricky gives us something different. He gives us explosiveness at the receiver position. He gives us speed, the ability to get down the field. He's a precision route runner. Ricky has done a really good job in his rehab. He was out there at practice yesterday like Brock. He had a really good day. Let's see if he can finish the week. It would be great to have him back out there on Sunday. It certainly would, John. I agree with that because Ricky Pearsall to start the year was a top 5, top 10 wide receiver in football when you just solely look at the production and everything else that he was able to do on tape. And clearly, he popped on the eye test. And in big-time moments, he had some big-time plays. He was targeted 29 times and caught 20 of those passes for 327 yards and 81.8 receiving yards per game. Like Purdy, Pearsall is also an Arizona guy, played at Arizona State before he went to Florida, and so a homecoming for him and Purdy, and I imagine they're both going to have a lot of family members in attendance. And then we round out with this. This has been a big question all year long. Is Brandon Aiyuk going to play for the San Francisco 49ers this year? His practice window has not yet been opened. He tore up his knee on October 20th, week 7 of the 2024 campaign. So we're about 13 months outside of that injury. But the key here for Aiyuk that I think a lot of people have lost track of is the fact that he tore 3 ligaments in his knee. It was as bad of an injury as you could suffer. It wasn't just a clean ACL tear where sometimes nowadays with medical advancements and training methods, players can return in 9 to 12 months. This was a really awful and severe injury for Brandon Aiyuk, especially for a wide receiver, considering what you have to do to get open and to be an impact player in this league, cutting, running full speed, putting a lot of pressure on that knee. And so Lynch said this about BA. The intention is to get Brandon back. We're not there yet. We just got to get him to a place where we're comfortable opening that practice window to see if he can make it back on the field. That is the intention. But we'll see. No absolutes there. And hopefully Aiyuk does not have a redshirt year. Now for me, I would not be surprised if Brandon Aiyuk doesn't play this year. He doesn't want to risk his future NFL career. The Niners obviously want to be very conservative and show discipline with getting him back. They want to make sure that he is healthy. BA also hasn't been the happiest person with San Francisco. If he gets hurt, that could impact any type of trade value he could have after the season. And the Niners might be to a point where they would like to deal him. And so I think all of those things are important to consider. Like with Purdy, though, what I said earlier, a lot of people have forgotten about how great and elite Brandon Aiyuk was. I mean, he gets drafted in the first round out of Arizona State in 2020, and he got significantly better every single season. 748 yards as a rookie, led the team. 2021 started the year in the doghouse, ended it hot, 826 yards, 5 touchdowns in those first 2 years. In 2022, he plays all 17 games. He goes over 1,000 yards with 8 tutties. And in 2023, ladies and gentlemen, he was an all-pro player. 75 catches for 1,300 plus yards. He was number 2 in the league in yards per catch, the second highest graded wide receiver in football, and had 7 touchdowns. Then he earned that contract, and in 2024, he looked out of shape. He looked at times disinterested. I'm not sure how that can happen when you're making $30 million per year. He didn't play well. 25 catches, 374 yards, and then against Kansas City, took that bad hit to the knee. We haven't seen him since. For a stretch run for the Niners, with how important it is, I think, for them to hover around 30 points per game to give this defense more margin for error, and Aiyuk return alongside Ricky Pearsall, a healthy George Kittle, a healthy Brock Purdy would be nice for this Niners team. Don't forget to give me a follow on X and Instagram, by the way, at Chase_Senior. We're reaching millions of people here on YouTube, and I'm reaching millions of people covering the Niners every day on my personal pages as well. All right, good stuff, everybody. We're going to do a mailbag coming up, segment number 3. Segment number 2, we're going to talk about this historic Niners injury rate. Why does San Francisco continue to get injured? Where do they rank among other teams across the NFL? Why does this keep happening? We're going to get into that segment number 2. Don't forget to get those questions in for our mailbag, though. Use the hashtag 49ers or send in a super chat. Chip, do we have some questions that have come in here?
Got a few so far. We got Wet Noodle, Anthony Hernandez, Mark, James, and Chua all getting some questions in. Could use some more, though, for a full mailbag, so get those in. And look who's in the chat right now. Pete Carroll.
Pete Carroll in the building. What's up, Pete Carroll? I think you should focus on your Raiders. They're a bad football team. I see Black Mask here, John Perry, Ryan Jones. Where is the troll repellent? I love it. Black Mask, a dirt nap. Anthony Hernandez. I must have Pete blocked.
You don't see his chats. Yeah, he's in here.
That's a good move right there. J49, Chase bringing the fire. Hey, man, you're bringing the fire. I appreciate that. Again, get those questions in so that we can do a mailbag. Hashtag 49ers. Send in a super chat. That's how you get featured here on the show. And in the meantime, 250 people hanging out. Continue to hit that thumbs up icon. Like the video. Let's get the stream to 100 likes here. Joan Baker, do the Niners need a voodoo doctor? No effing kidding. I love how you threw the American flag emoji in there, too. This is an America First program, no doubt. Joan, we're about to talk about these injuries and whether or not the Niners need a voodoo doctor coming up right now. Let's dive into it here. Hey, everybody. Welcome into the show. You're watching the San Francisco 49ers Report. My name is Chase Senior. As always, thank you so much for supporting the show. There are so many other fantastic content creators out there and people who cover this football team. So anytime you decide to get your Niners news and analysis right here, it's an honor to be your host. Coming up here on the show, don't forget to hit that subscribe button as well for daily and year-round coverage of the Niners. Some insane Niners injury news and trends. And really, we're going to try to solve a mystery that has been pertinent with this football team. Why do the 49ers continue to suffer a historic rash of injuries? Let's waste no time. So since Kyle Shanahan was hired by the Niners in 2017, I loved the hire at the time with what he did as an offensive mind and all of his previous stops. Obviously, has the NFL head coaching bloodlines with his pops, Mike. He's done some great things for the Niners. Offensively, he's one of the top offensive minds in football, but there has been a constant problem with him as the head coach. Injury issues. And among the most injured teams since 2017, according to True Media, Matt Barrows of The Athletic did a really good article on all of this. The Niners have been, since 2017, Kyle Shanahan's first year, the second most injured team in the National Football League, behind the New York Giants. Now, how this is calculated here. True Media tallied all games that players have missed while on injured reserve since 2017. The New York Giants playing on probably the worst turf surface in the NFL. Raheem Mostert, Nick Bosa, Michael Williams, they've all suffered torn ACLs there. They have had 1,638 games missed for players on IR. The 49ers, number 2, not far behind them at 1,600. So those are the two teams in the NFL who have had the most games missed on injured reserve. Look at the difference between the two last teams and the Buffalo Bills, who have had the fewest amount of games missed on injured reserve. 777. It's more than half. Wild. So this year alone, the 49ers have the third most games missed to IR with 132. And some of you might be saying, wow, Chase, I thought they were the most injured team in football. This doesn't count the players who never went on injured reserve. Brock Purdy, Ricky Pearsall, players like that. And so still this year, the Niners have been one of the most injured teams in football. And year over year, this has been a continuous problem. You look at this chart as well from True Media, NFL teams with the fewest and most games missed on injured reserve this year. The Rams, 18 games missed for players on injured reserve. Sure, it would be nice to be them, right? The San Francisco 49ers, 132, ahead of the Lions and the Dolphins tied at 148. What is also crazy here, week one starters for the Niners, meaning players who started in week one on the road against Seattle, have only played in 59% of the Niners snaps this season. There are 5 players who have started every game for the Niners here during the 2025 campaign. Trent Williams at left tackle, Dominic Pooney at right guard, Colton McKivitz at right tackle, somehow Christian McCaffrey, and Kyle Juszczyk. On defense, these players have started every game. Kalia Davis at defensive tackle, Jordan Elliott at defensive tackle, Deommodore Lenoir at corner, and D. Winters at the linebacker spot. And I mentioned this being a year-over-year issue under Kyle Shanahan. You look at their games missed ranked by year. 2017, dead last. 2018, stayed pretty healthy. 2019, 23rd. 2020, dead last. 2021, 21st. 2022, 15th. 2023, 7th. 2024, 29th. 2025, so far 30th. And we'll see what the outcome is here. Now, it hasn't kept the Niners from being able to win games. And there are a couple of different ways to track this. Today, it's the True Media number, games missed on IR. But we've shown you some of the Warren Sharp numbers where, as far as overall injuries, the Niners have been top 10 in injury rate every year since 2017, except for 2023 when they made it to the Super Bowl. And so you just imagine, this is why it's so frustrating for so many fans out there. What could happen? And what would this Niners team be able to accomplish if they could stay healthy for a season? So let me pop up today's poll question. Are the Niners cursed? I want you to type yes or no. And we're going to dig down deep to try to find out why the Niners have had all of these injuries coming up here in just a moment. Let's get to our sponsor. Today's 49ers Report, brought to you by PrizePicks. We really appreciate them for making today's show possible. This is America's #1 fantasy sports app. Join the millions of users. Sign up today. The hard-hitting football action, even better with PrizePicks. The weather might be changing with fall in full swing, but the feeling of being right never gets old. So keep the season rolling on PrizePicks by getting $50 instantly in lineups when you play your first $5. Follow other PrizePicks players directly on the app. Copy their lineups in one click. Whether it's a friend, a celebrity partner, or just somebody whose picks you like, hit the follow button and check out every lineup they create in the new feed tab on PrizePicks. What's also cool is that PrizePicks offers injury reboots. That's important for the Niners, especially with the theme of today's show. If one of your players leaves the game in the first half and does not return, PrizePicks won't count it as a loss. You can make your picks in less than 60 seconds and turn your takes into cash all season long on PrizePicks. 3-pick power play for Sunday's game against Arizona. Christian McCaffrey more on the receiving yards. George Kittle more on the half rushing or receiving touchdown. And Trey McBride more than 67.5 receiving yards. Download the PrizePicks app today. Use the code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS. To get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, it's good to be right. So the mystery here for the Niners, why does San Francisco suffer from so many injuries? Obviously, sometimes it just comes down to bad luck. In the case of Fred Warner, getting rolled up on by his own teammate, friendly fire, breaks his ankle, dislocates it, he's out for the year. But I do think there are other reasons that are reasons for why the Niners are hurt so much. And this offseason, they have to exhaust every avenue to try to stay healthy as a football team. And there are things that could make this avoidable. Can you make any changes to the strength and conditioning staff? It's pretty much been the same staff since Kyle Shanahan came to the Niners in 2017. Dustin Little has been Kyle's right-hand man. So obviously that is a problem. The Niners stretching practices and their stretching routine is a lot different than some other teams. You also have to factor in Kyle Shanahan's play style. He wants his teams to be physical. He wants his teams to play downhill. He wants to insert his physical will on the opponent. And when the postseason comes around, that plays. Late season games, that plays. The Niners are a team, unlike the Miami Dolphins, where they can only play in good weather, that can play and succeed and win in any weather. And I love that about the Niners. There's also this, and Matt Barrows made this point, which I thought was a really good one. The Niners at Levi Stadium have one of the best grass surfaces in the NFL. The Niners practice on a really nice grass surface. And obviously that has more give than a turf surface. But when the Niners go from the beautiful, luscious grass to having to play on turf, sometimes the human body isn't used to that. But there's an issue, too, with practicing on turf. The Niners did this many years ago prior to playing Cincinnati on a turf surface. So they practiced on turf, and then Dee Ford had tendonitis. There's also this, which we'll expand on. The Niners have these very physical Thursday practices. Is that causing some of these injuries? Because it's not a big recovery time until Sunday, and when you do this consistently throughout the year, you're not giving your body a long time to heal up. And an additional theory, which John Feliciano and other players have talked about, which I discussed on my X page, and people tried to cancel me for bringing up something that the Niners players have discussed and talked about, is the location of the practice field. It is literally right next to an electrical substation. If you're a believer that EMF can lead to a lot of health problems, and I had a lot of experts in the field reach out to me and say there could be something there, it can lead to tissue breakdown. It can impact your thyroid, which can control a lot of your system. It can impact other things. It can lead to potentially cancer, which is being shown in some of these early studies. But the human body doesn't really know how to react to some of these societal and technological changes. And so some of the data behind that, it's not been around for that long of a time. Anyway, Chris Conley said something notable recently about the Niners as a football team and the style in which they play with. He said, it's not about preservation, preserving your body. It's about attacking. Remember in 2023 when teams would play the Niners, the following week, like all year, that next week they would always lose because they got beat up, manhandled, and out-physicaled by San Francisco. And the Niners took a lot of pride in that. But when you play that type of style, it can lead to some injuries. Remember Javon Hargrave compared the Eagles and Niners practices? He signed with the Niners after being with the Eagles. He said Niners practices are like the Miami Heat. He compared Kyle Shanahan to Pat Riley. Pat Riley, an old school guy. The Miami Heat, very physical basketball team. He compared the Eagles practices to the Golden State Warriors, a lot more laid back. And the Eagles under Nick Sirianni, as they've changed their medical staff and they've changed their conditioning habits and their practice schedules, they've been one of the healthier teams in football over the last few years. Going back to the Thursday padded practices, in these padded practices this season, 7 players have been injured. Now, Kyle Shanahan in recent weeks has scaled back some of these Thursday practices, and he's had to do that because of all of the injuries. Well, what has happened the last couple of games? The Niners have come out of the Rams game with no new injuries to report. Unfortunately, against the Giants, it was Mykel Williams. Outside of that, not many other injuries to report. And so Matt Barrows talked about these Thursday practices in his Athletic article, saying the players, meanwhile, speak about the intensity of the Thursday practice, not as a burden, but as an advantage. For example, several players said a fiery Thursday practice last month was the precursor for their energetic performance against the Falcons. That is, the Thursday practice set the tone for Sunday's game. Thursday practices around the league generally are the padded practices, said Clelin Ferrell, who's played games for 3 other franchises and is in his second stint with the Niners. Now, how fast and physical they are, that depends on the people in the pads. The culture here is that we put a strong emphasis on Thursdays. And obviously that goes without saying. We know that the Niners play a very physical brand of football. And so there's no one answer to why the Niners have had this historic run of injuries for nearly a decade straight. I think there are a lot of factors, and obviously bad luck is involved as well. But this offseason, I think the Niners have to pull out all the stops and try to get down deep to the core level of why this keeps happening to try to figure out these issues. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button. I have you covered with daily and year-round coverage of San Francisco, and we appreciate your support as always. All right, going to be doing a mailbag here coming up. Use the hashtag 49ers or send in a super chat. Hashtag 49ers. Send in a super chat. Joan Baker, exorcist is warranted now. Not effing kidding, Chase. I love it. I love it.
I got a couple more questions coming in. Black Mask.
Cool.
We got Ski in the chat asking some questions.
Cool.
Justin Spears.
Also, you send in a super chat. We'll answer your question right off the rip.
Yup. So we're about to get into this mailbag here in a minute. Last chance. Get those questions in.
Let's go. Mailbag coming up. We'll round out with segment number 3. Hashtag 49ers. Send in a super chat. 2 segments down. Closing in on 40 minutes live. And we'll round out with this mailbag here. Continue to hit that thumbs up icon, like the video. 8 likes away from 100. All right, let's answer your questions here.
Let's do it.
Mailbag coming up. Never too late to get those questions in. And if you want to skip the line, you can send in a super chat. Let's go. Mailbag coming up here on today's edition of the San Francisco 49ers Report. My name is Chase Senior. Hope all of you out there are having a fantastic weekend. And as always, no matter where you are, how you're tuned in, thank you so much for making today's show a part of your day. Excited to open up the floor and take questions from the Niner gang and the faithful. First, a programming reminder and a programming alert. We'll be live for a Niners-Cardinals watch party on Sunday for Week 11. Turn on your notifications when you do hit that sub button by hitting that bell icon and select all. Therefore, anytime we publish a video, anytime we do a live show or a watch party, you will get that push notification. Ski! Getting us started with this one. Brock Purdy shouldn't play. Keep him healthy. Mac Jones is doing fine. So obviously, the injury status of Brock Purdy all throughout the week has been a big topic of conversation. And if he continues to progress well in the lead up to this game, Brock Purdy is going to play. Now, I do think that you make a fair point, but this is my opinion on this, right? If you play a less than 100% Brock Purdy and he can't move around and he's not mobile and he can't create out of structure, is he better than a 100% healthy Mac Jones who in 8 starts this year has been a really solid quarterback for Kyle Shanahan's offense? I'd rather take the 100% Mac Jones than the less than 100% Brock Purdy. But I understand where pressure is coming from. From Purdy's standpoint, he's a fiery guy. He's an uber competitive person, right? And this has been the case for him throughout his football life. He's also been an underdog at Iowa State and in the NFL when he was selected with the final pick in the 2022 NFL Draft. He also just signed that contract. He has seen Mac Jones play well. He's seeing Tom Brady and Adam Schefter saying he might not get his job back if Mac continues to play at this level. And from the Niners standpoint, they're like, look, you might not be 100%, but we believe in you. You're our franchise quarterback. We just gave you $265 million. Can you get on the field soon to make good on that investment? So obviously there's so much that goes into it, but we'll see how he plays on Sunday and how he looks on Sunday. Because if the Niners lose this game and they drop to 6-5, not going to be good for their hopes of trying to make the NFL playoffs, given how loaded the NFC is as far as records go. Justin Spears, how much of an impact do you think Keion White will have against the Arizona Cardinals? I think he's going to have a good impact. I mean, when he made his debut against the New York Giants, his pressure rate was very good. He was able to push and collapse the pocket. He is a powerful player who is able to win with a bull rush and a lot of physicality. And I think the Niners really like him because he can play defensive end. He can also play defensive tackle. Is he a twitched up, quick and explosive defensive end? No. That's why he has more success rushing from the inside compared to the outside. But I like this move for San Francisco at the time. They gave up a late round pick for him. He was a former second round pick. Last year, he graded out well, did some nice things on tape, had solid production, and I think he's been pretty solid for the Niners. The other thing with why I was bothered, why San Francisco didn't make a move going into the deadline, who the hell are the defensive ends going to be to start next year? Nick Bosa might not be back. Mykel Williams might not be back either. And for Mykel, it's probably likely that he's not back for week one. So you're looking at the same situation potentially to start next year where the Niners are thin on bodies at defensive end and along the defensive line. The important thing about Keion White, he is under contract and he can continue to build within this scheme. Niner faithful, 80-80. I imagine that's for Jerry Rice. Well done. GOAT. Can the 49ers add any free agency players still? Anybody worth taking a look at for the 49ers? Yes, they could sign anybody in NFL free agency if they want. Obviously, they can't trade for anybody because the NFL trade deadline was last Tuesday. But yeah, if the Niners wanted to add somebody in free agency, they could elect to sign somebody to help out their football team. There is one free agent that really comes to mind who I would love for the Niners to bring in, and it would help to fix what has been a pretty glaring weakness all year long. Now, I know that I have clamored for the Niners to play a lot of their younger players, but I think this player, who's very well accomplished, would be able to help some of the young players at a position in which those individuals have struggled at. That's at the safety spot, and the player who I'm talking about is Justin Simmons. He is a 3 or 4 time second-team All-Pro. He's not far removed from being an All-Pro player in this league. And he's good on that back end. He's a ball-hawking safety. The Niners can't cover at the safety position right now. He's so smart. He's so heady. And he's a great character inside the locker room. I mean, when he was with the Denver Broncos, he was the consummate pro, team captain. Last year, he played for Atlanta, didn't play well. That was one of the worst defenses in the NFL. They couldn't get after the quarterback. They were dead last in sacks and sack percentage, right? And so, in turn, the back end struggled a little bit. And I think that Justin Simmons is a guy who you can have, who's been durable as well, who can, at the very least, be a depth piece for you moving forward to help out your young safeties who are struggling. Malik Mustafa, Marquise Siegel before he got benched, Ji'Ayir Brown as well. So Justin Simmons is the free agent who I would love for the Niners to bring in. Asante Samuel Jr. signed with the Steelers practice squad. He worked out for the Niners on Monday. The only way that the Niners could sign him is if they added him to the active roster and poached him off that Steelers taxi club. Black Mask, should we trade for some bubble wrap to keep Ricky safe this week? Unfortunately, you can't trade for anything right now, even bubble wrap, because the NFL trade deadline is over. And I love Ricky Pearsall as a player. He's dynamic. He's elusive. He's explosive. I love his route running. I really like his footwork. I like how he plays bigger than his size. He's a willing blocker. He can make things happen after the catch. But injuries are a concern. And don't get me started on me trying to, or you thinking that I'm blaming Ricky Pearsall being injury prone on the gunshot. It's not what I'm saying at all. Before the gunshot wound during his rookie year, which obviously derailed his first season in the NFL, he dealt with hamstring and shoulder issues. This year, he has dealt with hamstring and knee issues. So he has been an injury-prone player if you just talk about the amount of injuries that he's had in his first 2 years in the NFL. Hopefully, he could stay healthy because this Niners offense certainly needs him on the field, helping out this passing attack. Let's get to our sponsor before we pop back to taking your questions here. The 49ers Report is brought to you by Prize Picks. The hard-hitting football action is even better with Prize Picks. The weather might be changing, but the feeling of being right, it never gets old. So keep the season rolling on Prize Picks by getting $50 instantly in lineups when you play your first $5. Prize Picks is simple to play. Just pick more or less on at least 2 player stats. If you get your picks right, you could cash in. Prize Picks, it's the place to get action on football in more than 40-plus states, and that includes all of you tuned in from California. It's the only app that offers stacks. You can pick the same player up to 3 times in the same lineup. You want to pick more on Brock Purdy's pass yards, rush yards, and touchdowns. Now you can pick all of them in the same lineup only on Prize Picks. Our 3-pick power play for Niners Cardinals on Sunday. Christian McCaffrey more than 53.5 receiving yards. George Kittle more than a half rushing or receiving touchdown. Trey McBride more than 67.5 receiving yards. Download the Prize Picks app today. Use the code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, it's good to be right. Our guy Chua, can we have a running back by committee, and can we please use 2 running backs? So I talked about this on the show this week. I would like to see more from Brian Robinson. I think that Brian Robinson is a really good player. He's added a different dimension to this Niners ground game. This Niners offensive line is not that good. Sometimes you can just null and void that by just running hard. And B-Rob gives this Niners backfield something that they used to have with Jordan Mason. The ability to run over guys, lower his shoulder, and get some of those tough yards. And in his last 2 games, Chua, we've seen Robinson play very well. 5 carries for 53 yards, 10.6 yards per carry, and a touchdown against the Giants. And then against the Rams, 8 carries for 42 yards, 5.1 yards per carry, and a touchdown. Would not mind, as you look at his numbers the last 2 games right there, seeing more 21 and 22 personnel, where you have McCaffrey and Robinson on the field at the same time. McCaffrey has maybe lost a little bit of a step, not that much of a step. I mean, he's still been excellent this year, but at times, like, this ground game looks really powerful and really dynamic with Brian Robinson running the rock. Back-to-back weeks in these 2 games, he's had truck stick, run you over, highlight reel-worthy touchdowns. And I just think that he's a good player. What's interesting is that the knock on him at Washington was that he was big and physically built, but he didn't always play like it. I don't think that's been a problem for the Niners, and I think that's a credit to Bobby Turner and Kyle Shanahan for coaching him up. They both have done a great job of developing running backs over time. Mark Munoz, is the Super Bowl window closed for a few years, or can we retool the offensive line with draft picks and go full send next year? Look, it really depends on what these draft classes shape up to be, right? Like Renardo Green and Dominic Pooney, for instance, in their first years were pretty damn good. And in both of their sophomore campaigns here in year 2, they struggled a little bit. Ricky Pearsall is a player who, when healthy, has been really good, but hasn't been able to stay healthy enough. Jacob Cowing's never been able to see the field. Isaac Orendo is talented, runs 4.3 at 220 pounds, but the Niners traded for Brian Robinson because he's always hurt. You look at the draft class this year, Michael Williams tore his ACL. Your second-round pick, Alfred Collins. I like what he can become. Nick Martin, can't see the field. Upton Stout, been up and down. CJ West, healthy scratch. Marquise Siegel, benched. Connor Colby, really struggled. Curtis Rourke from Canada. What do they call him? The Maple Gunslinger or whatever. You know, he's coming off an ACL injury from last year. And so we don't know who he is. So it's really going to be based on these draft classes, because for a little stretch there, the Niners had some awful draft classes. 2021, 2022 and 2023. They had 3 third-round picks in 2023. Ji'Ayir Brown, Cam Latu, Jake Moody. Yikes. So when you miss on those picks, that's what causes the Niners to have a reset year and a rebuild year like they've had this past offseason going into this year. So if you load up on draft picks, if you can stay healthy, if you make some good moves in free agency, the talent is still there to make a run. But obviously, there's a lot that has to go right and happen in order for the Niners to be bona fide Super Bowl contenders. Because how far are they away from the likes of the Rams, the Eagles, the Seahawks, and others inside the division? Ski. Do you think that we should have gotten Jalen Walker instead of Mykel Williams? That was the player who I wanted to go with. Jalen Walker, the Georgia teammate, to Mykel Williams. I just like players at edge who are more explosive than Mykel Williams. Now, what I always like to see is some more college production. Walker and Mykel had okay, solid production, not great. I think a big thing to consider and factor in there is that they were playing alongside so many other NFL players. And so at times their snaps would be down because Georgia was so deep and talented. But Jalen Walker is a player who I liked better because I thought he had more upside than Mykel. Mykel is going to win with a bull rush, but he doesn't really have a pass rush arsenal. He's a good edge setter against the run, but he's not really going to wow you with explosive and quickness. And how I want to get after the quarterback is with explosive bend and quickness, quick twitch. And that's what Jalen Walker has that Mykel Williams lacks. Wet Noodle 187. Who do you want to win more, the Hawks or the Rams? Good question. I mean, they're both 7-2 right now, I believe. The Seahawks, since losing week 1 to the Niners, are 7-1. The Rams, since choking away that game to the Eagles, have won 4 games in a row. So these are 2 of the hottest teams in football, and obviously they don't like each other at all. Can I pick neither, Wet Noodle? I don't want to see either win. How about a tie? A tie would certainly throw a wrench into the NFC playoff standings. Yeah, it's hard to answer. I would say I dislike the Seahawks more, if that helps answer the question. Speaking of NFC West games, Niners Cardinals on Sunday. Who you got? Type SF for San Francisco. AR for Arizona. Both teams banged up. Both teams really need this win. All right. Good stuff today, everybody. We are about to sign off. 3 segments in the can. We'll give you some coverage a little bit later, all throughout the weekend. Going live with Larry Krueger tomorrow, as of right now. 1:45 p.m. Eastern, 10:45 a.m. Pacific. So we'll talk all things Niners in the normal Friday spot. So thanks to everybody for tuning in, supporting the content. For Chip, I am Chase Sr. Next time we'll be live, barring any crazy breaking news, Sunday, Niners, Cardinals. We'll see you then.